Hello, everyone, and welcome. So here is what we're looking into today, the 1,400-year lifestyle, understanding the Islamic ban on alcohol and pork. Let's just go ahead, peel back the layers, and get right into it.
It's a completely universal question, isn't it? Why does Islam forbid alcohol and pork? If you go out and ask the average person on the street, most folks just assume it's an arbitrary, ancient religious dictate. A rule written down a super long time ago simply because someone said so. And hey, while the religious aspect is undeniably the foundation, leaving the explanation right there actually misses a massive part of the historical picture. We kind of tend to look at ancient rules through this hypermodern lens, and in doing so, we completely ignore the reality of the world where those rules were actually born.
Okay, let's dive into this. Usually we assume it's just a religious reason, but the reality, it's actually a fascinating triad of forces: environment, society, and faith. We're going to peel the onion today, as they say. We'll look at the deep environmental constraints of the ancient Middle East, the gritty social realities of tribal communities, and of course, the spiritual obedience that ties the whole shebang together. It really isn't just one thing, it's a brilliant intersection of all three.
So, moving right into our first layer of analysis. Section 1, the desert and the pig. Let's look at the pragmatic realities of the ancient Middle East.
To really grasp this, we have to mentally leave our modern world of crisp air conditioning and fully stocked supermarkets. We need to step back in time to a really harsh desert landscape where survival was literally a daily calculation and resources were incredibly scarce. Consider the pig for a second. In a desert where water is absolutely precious, pigs require massive amounts of water and shade just to survive because they are incredibly weak to the heat. They also need very specific feed, which makes them highly inefficient economically. Now, compare that to cows and sheep. These animals are hardy. They can survive by utilizing the rough, dry pastures of the desert. So in an ancient desert economy, trying to raise a pig wasn't just difficult, it was simply a terrible investment of highly limited resources.
But wait, the problem wasn't just economic. It was literally a matter of life and death. Beyond the terrible economics of raising pigs in the desert, keep in mind that ancient people entirely lacked refrigeration technology. In that intense Middle Eastern heat, meat spoiled rapidly. Pork in particular was incredibly dangerous to store and eat because it carried a remarkably high risk of severe parasite infection if it wasn't preserved properly or cooked fully. And those were things that were very hard to guarantee back then. So avoiding pork wasn't just some spiritual choice out of thin air. It was a highly pragmatic health and survival mechanism.
All right, let's shift our gears to the second rule. Section 2, the slow alcohol ban and ensuring community stability.
A lot of people just assume that Islam's ban on alcohol was this immediate, overnight rule dropped on the population from day one. Boom, no more alcohol. But as historians note, it was actually a very gradual process. In the early days of Islam, alcohol was not entirely forbidden right away. Phase 1 was actually just a simple instruction: do not pray while drunk. It was all about maintaining focus during worship. But as time went on, society evolved into Phase 2. There became this heightened, undeniable recognition that alcohol was clouding human judgment and actively causing crime and disputes. Finally, this calculated shift in policy culminated in Phase 3, a total ban on alcohol. It was a step-by-step societal adjustment.
So, why was that gradual shift even necessary? Well, because in the ancient tribal societies of the Middle East, alcohol frequently fueled violence and really deep-seated conflicts. Imagine trying to build a brand new unified community out of historically warring tribes. Moderation and responsibility became absolutely vital to stabilize this new society. Banning alcohol entirely became a profound sociological necessity to maintain peace, prevent violence, and ultimately keep the community unified.
Which brings us to a really fascinating pivot point. Section 3, a promise, not a diet. Let's check out the final twist here.
Okay, so we've talked about the brutal desert heat, the lack of refrigeration, the parasites, and the tribal violence. But here is the logical question, right? We live in the modern day. We have advanced medicine, we literally have high-tech refrigerators to store our meat safely, and complex legal systems to manage societal conflicts. So if modern technology completely solved those historical problems, why do these 1,400-year-old rules still exist today? Well, the crucial point is summarized perfectly right from the Quran. The ultimate reason for Muslims today isn't about the ancient desert, and it's certainly not about lacking a refrigerator. It is simply because God forbade it. While we can look back historically and see the incredible environmental and social pragmatism of the time, for believers, at its core, this is a matter of profound faith and obedience.
Despite all our modern hygiene, incredible advancements in medicine, and crazy new technology,
millions of Muslims around the world continue to observe these rules. They aren't just keeping some outdated health code alive. They are honoring a sacred promise. Keeping the ban is a deeply held identity marker that has survived for 14 centuries, literally 1,400 years, because it is a direct practice of faith, transcending whatever era or technological age they happen to live in.
So, let's redefine this entire concept before we wrap things up today. When we look at the rule now, we really shouldn't view it as a simple, restrictive diet. It is not merely a question of what can we eat or what can we drink. Rather, it's a comprehensive life principle. It's a huge, profound statement of how will we live. It acts as a daily, physical reaffirmation of spiritual identity and commitment that completely shapes a person's entire approach to life. Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Seeing how a promise made 1,400 years ago continues to shape the daily lives, the meals, and the identities of millions of people globally, it's truly remarkable. It really makes you wonder about the power of belief, doesn't it? How do our own deeply held commitments and promises define our identities today? What are the principles that you hold on to, regardless of how the world around you changes? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helped you see a very old topic in a completely new light. Keep learning, and I will see you next time.